Waterfall has always been a pretty difficult subject. But how about making it a bit more trickier by attempting it with watercolors? Today's video is all about painting waterfall with watercolors. I'm going to give you a three-step method for nailing any kind of painting which you want to create. Step one is all about adding a very rough sketch in the beginning. You can either take a sketchbook like I have taken or take any watercolor paper of your choice. I have a part 2 of the same sketching step where we are going to go ahead and actually mark out the darker areas. This darker area is going to tell you where exactly you would like to have the darker values of your painting compared to where you would like to have the lighter values. It would help you to really ace through any of your watercolor paintings. This will serve as a guide for each one of you to go through every step of a watercolor approach. In case you are not even using 100% cotton paper and you are going ahead with a 25% cotton paper, your first layer is absolutely dry. You can go ahead in your second layer and only apply the colors where you want to add the darker values over the areas where you will find the graphite marks. I would continue the process and go ahead with some more graphite marks on the right. It is going to also outline the rocks which are on the right side of this particular waterfall. Now, there is a lot that you can understand about a waterfall, and you have already seen a whole sketchbook page that I did design based on waterfall only. How is a waterfall created is what I always like to understand. A waterfall is basically created when there is a hard rock on the top and there are softer rocks in the bottom. Water will crash through the softer rocks and the harder rocks remain intact. And then we will find a fall which happens from the top, that is the harder rock, to the softer rocks which are there in the bottom. I always like to capture the process of any kind of a natural phenomena or activity that we usually witness in nature. And that's how I usually design any of my sketchbook pages. You can see even one of my previous sketchbook page class on Skillshare. I have given below the link. It's a real short and quick 1 hour class where we get to paint a bird as well as some of the related components like where exactly the bird is found as well as maybe some of the structure of the bird parts. But having said this, you can always go ahead even with a mixed media practice like sketching a small waterfall like we have done in this painting on the right side absolutely as a thumbnail sketch, which you can further use it as your final sketch with watercolors. Applying watercolors is always a two-step process. The first one is majorly about applying your layer 1. The second step is all about layer 2 and detailing. Why I put together layer 2 and detailing? Because there is less to be done in the final detailing part, whereas there is more to be done in the second layer. The first layer is all about a very, very rough wash and only just adding the values of the colors which you want to see in your painting. I have added a royal blue for my sky, and now I am going ahead with my yellow green to apply on few of the areas of this particular waterfall. Now there is a lot of greenery which we see on the top, and hence I want to apply my darker values and lighter value play over there. I'm using the same water which I have applied, and this is a 185 GSM 100% cotton paper. The speed of the video is at 2x, and hence you can always go ahead reduce the speed or else even increase the speed depending on how you want to go ahead and watch it. Time to add the values on our rocks. Now, this rocky part is majorly the area which would be in various colors, shades, and values. As I say, various color shades and values, we will be creating it with the two single shades, that is your burnt sienna and ultramarine. I am an absolute lover of ultramarine and I have been using this color for many years in all my paintings. You can go ahead and check out my earlier videos where we have mixed a lot of our burnt sienna ultramarine, or else even check out my recent class Voyaging to the Sea, a 14-day watercolor series where we have explored the color values as well as mixing of each one of them in way more detail. You may not have the same color shades, etc., but always you can create the color of your choice with a few shades that are already available on your palette. I'm even adding the burnt sienna on the left side of the waterfall. You can continue to add lighter and darker values of the burnt sienna. I go through this part pretty quickly as there is less to do. Only I have to add the darker values in the areas where it is more shaded and leave the other parts as is. That's how I'm going to follow the normal path of painting with watercolors. It's simple, easy. We already have a guideline that are the graphite marks set on our paper, and now it's just only going over it with our brushes, darker values of color to create the final piece. Adding some blue in the areas where you observe right now, and it is ultramarine as I did tell you earlier. I will go with some clear water and apply on top of the foliage area. Using my Escoda Optimo 6 size brush, which has got a really nice tip, and applying some of my darker values of green to detail the green parts or the leaves of the trees that you can see over here. I will continue with this process even on the right side and add a few dots here and there, which will look more darker. I will go with the darker values towards the bottom and leave the lighter values towards the top. When light falls on top of the leaves or on top of any kind of tree, you will see that the area which is there on towards the top will become lighter and the area which is towards the bottom will become way more darker. That's how we continue to use the concept even in our future paintings. Let's start with our darker value of rocks. We have just added some of the darker values, broader and shorter strokes. You can go ahead with a thicker brush compared to a thinner brush, which we were using earlier. I usually prefer to use brushes where I am more comfortable with, and this is one of the brushes that I have been using for many years now. Though the tutorial is not about what your brushes are, but it's important to always note that go ahead with the brushes that you are most comfortable with if you are working on any painting that is new to you or you are trying to explore or going with the perfection for a particular painting. I have already painted many waterfalls. Even a few months back, I have given a tutorial about waterfall, but this one is specifically done with a few more steps kept in my mind, and it has been simplified more compared to what we did in our last tutorial. I will continue to work on the cracks, the ridges, as well as some of the areas which are more in the shadows compared to the ones which are more in the lighter parts. I have played with the initial lighter part of these rocks by adding a very light shade of ultramarine as well as burnt sienna. Now it's time to go ahead with our layer 2, or basically our final layer for this painting. Adding some of my loose strokes just to show the way water is falling. It is basically straight, and some of the areas are, of course, covered in the rocks, on top of which the water is actually landing. So all those areas also needs to be highlighted in this particular painting. Once we are done with these rocks, there will be an important part which is all about detailing the last steps. Let's go ahead and work on it. Detailing is an extended part of our layer 2. It's not that we are going to add this detailing in each and every part of our painting. It's only the last few areas where we are going to touch and let it become more to play with light and shadow rather than only keeping it more flatter. Some of the areas where we think there is more of shadow, we will be adding the darker values, and the other areas we will leave as is. The size of the paper is an A5 size, so I am not taking more than 30 minutes to actually finish off a painting on an A5 size paper, and that should be always a target, even as a watercolor artist for all your paintings. In case you are an artist who works on smaller paper, is 15 to 20 minutes that you should be targeting. Watercolor is a transparent and a very bright or vibrant medium. We should be only playing with the transparency and vibrancy of the watercolor medium for most of our paintings. Right now, working on the white part of our painting, which is majorly the waterfall. I do not like to mask out any of the areas. That's one of the reasons I did leave it white, and we are going to just add the dirty blue color in few of the areas and leave the rest of the part as is. This is ultramarine shade that I'm using towards the bottom, and I have used a bit of a brown into the ultramarine shade to create the dirty blue shade which we wanted for the waterfall. Lastly, one point that I would always like to mention in a waterfall is the motion of the waterfall. The motion is from the top towards the bottom, and you need to add strokes that start from the top and goes till the bottom. I will be using the same factor when I go ahead and add my strokes even in the second layer. Now, this is basically a staircase waterfall, which you might have seen earlier. There are about 10 types of waterfall that we see in nature, and this is one of them. Finally, adding the last parts, that is majorly our tree trunk, as well as some of the areas where I am going ahead and adding my branches of the trees. They are loose in few of the places, and some of the places I have added continuous pieces. So that's how I'm going to balance out my entire part of the branches, etc., which I want to add towards the top area. I will go ahead with smaller ones as I move towards the left. The right side is more closer to our eye, and hence I have kept it more detailed. Let's just add the final few strokes and have a final look of this painting. Can't wait to see all your projects and all your final outcomes. Do mark me on Instagram, watercolor.illustration.letter. I would love to share it back on my stories. If you have liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Add your comments. I read through each one of them individually. Do follow me on Skillshare or on my website www.vibrantparcels.com. See you again next week with another new video.